In the golden glow of Hesperides Hall's orchard, where apples gleam like treasures, a scream pierces the night. A loyal butler lies dead, a pruning knife in his back, a single golden apple placed beside him. A taunt or a clue? Hercule Poirot, the master detective, steps into a web of secrets, where every guest hides a motive. Greed, betrayal, or a buried past. Who wielded the knife? What secret was worth killing for? And who is the shadowy figure lurking in the orchard's depths? Unravel the mystery in Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot's novel, Secrets and Surprising Twists, where every clue leads to a shocking truth. Chapter 1. The Orchard's Golden Hour. The late afternoon sun cast a warm amber glow over the sprawling orchards of Hesperides Hall, a grand estate nestled in the heart of Devon's rolling countryside. The air was thick with the sweet scent of ripening apples, their branches heavy with fruit, bending low as if whispering secrets to the earth. It was September 1925, and the Harvest Festival loomed, promising a weekend of celebration for the village of Little Hesper. Yet, beneath the idyllic charm of the estate, a quiet tension simmered, like a storm gathering beyond the horizon. Hesperides Hall, with its ivy-clad walls and mullioned windows, stood as a monument to the Grenville family's enduring wealth. Sir Percival Grenville, the current patriarch, was a man of impeccable pedigree but questionable temperament. His invitations to the annual harvest gathering were coveted, drawing a select circle of guests to the estate. This year, the guest list was smaller, more intimate, and, as Captain Arthur Hastings would later reflect, peculiarly combustible. Hastings, ever the loyal companion to the great Hercule Poirot, had arrived at the estate at the behest of his friend. Poirot, however, had not yet made his appearance, detained by some vague business in London. Mon ami, Poirot had written in his precise, elegant hand, I rely upon you to observe. The human heart, it reveals itself in the smallest gestures. Glass. She was a striking woman, with auburn hair and a porcelain complexion, but her eyes held a flicker of unease. Beside her stood Dr. Malcolm Reed, the family physician, a man of middle age with a scholarly air and a habit of adjusting his spectacles when nervous. His presence at the gathering seemed more dutiful than festive. Across the room, Miss Clara Winthrop, Sir Percival's niece, leaned against a bookcase, her sharp features softened by a practiced smile. She was a journalist, known for her incisive columns in the London papers, and her presence at Hesperides Hall was as much a mystery as her uncle's sudden decision to host this gathering. Next to her, Major Ernest Blake, a retired military man with a weathered face and a penchant for brandy, laughed too loudly at his own jest, drawing a disapproving glance from the final guest, Mrs. Violette Dubois. Mrs. Dubois, a French widow of enigmatic origins, was the estate's most curious addition. Her dark eyes and elegant poise suggested a past far more complex than her stated role as a family friend. She spoke little, but when she did, her words carried a weight that silenced the room. Hastings, ever susceptible to feminine charm, found himself intrigued by her reserve. The butler, Mr. Reginald Stokes, moved silently through the room, refilling glasses with the precision of a metronome. His gaunt face betrayed no emotion, but Hastings caught him pausing, ever so briefly, to glance at Lady Eleanor. It was a fleeting moment, but Hastings, mindful of Poirot's instructions, tucked it away in his memory. As the evening wore on, the conversation turned to the orchard itself. Sir Percival, with a touch of pride, described the rare strain of apples. Golden Hesperides, he called them, cultivated exclusively on the estate. They are the envy of every horticulturist in England, he boasted. Worth their weight in gold, some say. Gold, indeed, Miss Winthrop remarked, her tone edged with amusement. One might wonder what lengths a man would go to protect such treasure. Sir Percival's smile tightened. Her food with delicate disinterest. Mrs. Dubois, seated beside Hastings, offered only cryptic remarks about the beauty of the orchard at twilight. As the clock struck 9 p.m., a sharp cry pierced the air. It came from the direction of the orchard, a sound so raw and desperate that it froze the table. Stokes the butler was the first to move, his face pale but composed. "I shall investigate, sir," he said to Sir Percival, who nodded curtly. The guests exchanged glances, their earlier civility unraveling. Lady Eleanor rose, her hand trembling. "It sounded like a woman," she whispered. "Nonsense," Sir Percival snapped, though his voice lacked conviction. "Likely a fox or some such creature. Stokes will handle it." But Stokes did not return. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The silence grew oppressive, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. At last, Major Blake, emboldened by brandy, stood. "I'll see what's keeping him," he declared, striding toward the French doors that led to the garden. Hastings followed, his heart pounding. The orchard lay beyond, its trees silhouetted against the moonlit sky. As they stepped outside, the air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of apples and something else, something metallic, like blood. At the edge of the orchard, beneath a gnarled apple tree, they found Stokes. He lay face down, his hands clutching the earth, a dark stain spreading across his back. A pruning knife, its blade gleaming in the moonlight, protruded from his spine. Major Blake swore under his breath. Hastings, his mind racing, knelt beside the body. The ground was soft, marked with footprints, some clear, others smudged. A single apple, golden and perfect, lay just beyond Stokes's outstretched hand, as if it had fallen from the tree above. "Good Lord," Blake muttered. "He's been murdered." Hastings stood, his thoughts turning to Poirot. This was no accident, no coincidence. The scene until the police arrive. His thoughts, however, were with Poirot. Where was the little Belgian detective? His knack for seeing order in chaos was desperately needed now. Sir Percival Grenville, his face ashen but his posture rigid, broke the silence. "This is outrageous," he snapped, his voice cutting through the night air. "Stokes was a loyal man. Who would do such a thing?" His eyes darted to each guest, as if expecting a confession to spill forth. Lady Eleanor, clutching a shawl about her shoulders, shivered despite the mild evening. "It's dreadful," she whispered. "Simply dreadful." Her gaze lingered on the body, and Hastings noted a flicker of something, fear perhaps, or guilt, in her expression. Dr. Malcolm Reed knelt beside Stokes, his medical instincts overriding decorum. "He's quite dead," he confirmed, adjusting his spectacles. "The wound is deep, precise. Death would have been near instantaneous." His voice was clinical, but his hands trembled slightly as he rose. Miss Clara Winthrop, ever the journalist, stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the scene. A pruning knife, she murmured, almost to herself. How poetic. The tool of the orchard turned to murder. Her tone carried a hint of fascination, and Hastings wondered if she was already composing her next column. Mrs. Violette Dubois remained at the edge of the group, her dark eyes unreadable. "This is a tragedy," she said softly, her French accent lending her words an air of gravitas. "But we must not leap to conclusions. The truth, it hides in the shadows." Her gaze met Hastings, and he felt a chill, as if she saw more than she let on. Major Ernest Blake, swaying slightly from his earlier indulgences, pointed at the footprints in the soft earth. "Look here," he said, his voice gruff. "Someone was with him. Those tracks, 2 sets, maybe 3. We've got a killer among us." His accusation hung heavy, and the group fell silent, each glancing at the others with new suspicion. Hastings, mindful of Poirot's instruction to observe, catalogued. Group dispersed reluctantly, their whispers trailing like smoke. Hastings lingered, sketching a mental map of the scene. The body at the base of the apple tree, the knife's angle, the footprints fanning out toward the orchard's heart. He noted the time, 9:35 p.m., and the moon's position, casting long shadows that obscured parts of the ground. Inside, the drawing room felt stifling despite its grandeur. Lady Eleanor sat by the fire, her hands clasped tightly. Miss Winthrop paced, her notebook now in hand, scribbling furiously. Mrs. Dubois stood by a window, gazing out at the orchard as if it held answers. Dr. Reed busied himself with a decanter of brandy, offering a glass to Major Blake, who accepted it eagerly. "The police will be here within the hour," Sir Percival announced, returning from the study. "Inspector Grange, from Exeter." "Competent enough, I suppose." His tone suggested otherwise, and Hastings felt a pang of longing for Poirot's arrival. Inspector Grange, whoever he was, could not match the Belgian's genius. The hour that followed was one of strained silence and furtive glances. Hastings, seated near the fire, watched the guests closely. Lady Eleanor's fingers twisted a handkerchief into knots. Dr. Reed's spectacles slipped down his nose repeatedly, a nervous tic. Miss Winthrop's pen scratched ceaselessly, though she guarded her notes from view. Major Blake muttered about cowardly attacks and dishonorable curs, his voice slurring. Mrs. Dubois alone seemed calm, her stillness almost unnerving. At precisely 10:45 p.m., the sound of a motor car crunching on the gravel drive announced the police's arrival. Inspector Grange, a stocky man with a bristling mustache and a no-nonsense air, entered with 2 constables. He surveyed the room, his eyes lingering on each guest before settling on Hastings. "You're the one who insisted on preserving the scene?" he asked, his tone gruff but approving. "Yes, Captain Arthur, everything, and get statements from the lot of them." As the guests were summoned for questioning, Hastings felt a growing unease. Each had been in the dining room at 9 p.m. when the cry was heard, but the orchard was only a short walk away. Any one of them could have slipped out, committed the act, and returned. Alibis, he knew, would be murky at best. Lady Eleanor claimed she had been at the table, speaking to Dr. Reed. The doctor confirmed this, though his hesitation suggested distraction. Miss Winthrop insisted she had been admiring a painting in the hall, alone. Major Blake admitted to stepping onto the terrace for a cigar, placing him closest to the orchard. Mrs. Dubois said she had been by the window, lost in thought. A vague alibi that offered little clarity. Sir Percival, questioned last, was indignant. "I was hosting my guests," he snapped. "Stokes was alive when dinner began. I had no reason to harm him." Grange scribbled notes, his expression unreadable. "We'll need to search the house and grounds," he said, "and nobody leaves until I say so." As the guests retired, uneasy and subdued, Hastings stood by the French doors, staring into the orchard. The golden apples, glinting in the lantern light, seemed to mock the tragedy. Stokes' death was no random act, he was certain. Somewhere in the shadows of Hesperides Hall, a motive lay hidden, coiled like a serpent, and only Poirot could unravel it. Chapter 3. The Arrival of Poirot. The dawn broke over Hesperides Hall with a deceptive calm. The early light filtering through the orchard's branches and painting the estate in hues of gold and rose. Inside, however, the atmosphere was heavy with dread. The murder of Reginald Stokes had cast a pall over the house, and the guests, confined to the estate by Inspector Grange's orders, moved with the uneasy caution of those who know suspicion follows their every step. Captain Arthur Hastings, restless after a sleepless night, stood at the drawing-room window, watching the orchard where the butler's body had been found. The pruning knife, the footprints, the solitary golden apple, each detail. Right in the orchard, Poirot raised a hand, his expression serene yet commanding. "Calm yourself, Hastings. The little gray cells, they require order, not agitation. Tell me everything from the beginning, and omit nothing." As they settled into the library, a quieter corner of the house, Hastings recounted the events. The dinner, the cry at 9 p.m., the discovery of Stokes' body, the pruning knife, the footprints, and the curious golden apple. He described the guests, Sir Percival's imperious demeanor, Lady Eleanor's nervous fragility, Dr. Reed's scholarly unease, Miss Winthrop's sharp curiosity, Major Blake's bluster, and Mrs. Dubois' enigmatic reserve. Poirot listened, his head tilted slightly, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When Hastings finished, Poirot nodded. "Bon. You have observed well, mon ami, though you see without understanding. The apple, it intrigues me. A symbol, perhaps, or a message. And the footprints, how many and of what kind?" "2 or 3 sets, Hastings replied, recalling the scene. "Some clear, others smudged. The ground was soft, but the moonlight made it hard to discern details." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The moonlight. It hides as much as it reveals. We shall examine the scene ourselves, but first I must meet these personages of whom you speak. The human heart, Hastings, it betrays itself in the smallest gesture." They found the guests in the dining room, where a subdued breakfast was underway. Inspector Grange, who had spent the night coordinating his constables, stood by the door, his expression one of barely concealed frustration. The arrival of Poirot, however, shifted the room's dynamic. Sir Percival rose, his irritation evident. "Who is this?" he demanded. "Hercule Poirot," the detective announced, bowing slightly. "A private investigator, summoned by my friend Captain Hastings to assist in this most unfortunate affair." Grange's mustache twitched. "I've heard of you, Mr. Poirot. Your reputation precedes you." Room. As were we all. The cry came from the orchard, and Stokes went to investigate. When he didn't return, Blake and Hastings found him. Murdered. Poirot nodded, his eyes fixed on Sir Percival. "And you, Sir Percival, you remained in the dining room throughout?" "Of course," he replied, though his gaze flickered briefly to his wife. Lady Eleanor spoke next, her voice soft but steady. "I was with Dr. Reed discussing the Harvest Festival. I heard the cry, but I stayed at the table." Dr. Reed nodded. "As she says, I was distracted perhaps, but I recall no one leaving the room until Stokes." Miss Winthrop leaned forward. "I stepped into the hall just before 9 to admire a painting. I was alone, but only for a moment. The cry brought me back." Major Blake cleared his throat. "I was on the terrace having a cigar. Heard the cry, came back in. Didn't see a blasted thing." Mrs. Dubois' voice was calm, almost musical. "I stood by the window watching the orchard. The cry startled me, but I saw nothing until we all went outside." Poirot's gaze lingered on each speaker as if weighing their words against an invisible scale. "Merci," he said at last. "Your accounts are most illuminating. Now, I must see the scene of the crime." Accompanied by Hastings and Grange, Poirot made his way to the orchard. The morning light revealed details the moonlight had obscured. Stokes's body had been removed, but the ground bore the marks of the previous night. The pruning knife's outline, the footprints, and the golden apple, now bagged as evidence. Poirot crouched, his gloved hands hovering over the earth. "The footprints," he murmured. "Two distinct sets, one heavy, one lighter. And a third, partial, as if someone stepped carefully. The killer, perhaps, or a witness." He picked up a small twig, using it to trace the outlines. "The heavy prints. They belong to a man, I think. The lighter ones, perhaps a woman. And this apple." He gestured to the bagged fruit. "It was not dropped by accident. It was placed." Hercule Poirot had commandeered a mahogany desk, its surface cleared of all but a single notepad and a silver fountain pen. The room, with its towering bookshelves and heavy velvet curtains, felt like a sanctuary of order amidst the chaos of murder. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the window, watching the orchard where Stokes had met his end, while Inspector Grange paced near the door, his impatience barely concealed. Poirot, however, was the picture of calm, his green eyes sharp with purpose. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, addressing the assembled guests, who sat in a tense semicircle before him. "A crime has been committed, and the truth, it hides among you. I, Hercule Poirot, will ask questions. You will answer with precision. The smallest detail, it may be the key to unlock this mystery." Sir Percival Grenville, seated at the head of the group, bristled. "This is absurd. We've already told Inspector Grange everything. Stokes was a servant, likely killed by some vagrant or poacher." Poirot's smile was polite but unyielding. "Non, Sir Percival. A vagrant does not use a pruning knife from your own orchard, nor place a golden apple so deliberately beside the body. The killer is known to this house. Now, let us begin." He turned first to Lady Eleanor, whose delicate hands twisted a lace handkerchief. "Madame, you were in the dining room at 9 o'clock, yes? With Dr. Reed, discussing the Harvest Festival. But tell me, what precisely did you see when the cry was heard?" Lady Eleanor's eyes flickered with unease. I was startled, naturally. The cry came from the orchard, so sudden. I looked around, but everyone was at the table, except Miss Winthrop, who had stepped into the hall. Poirot nodded, his pen scratching a note. "And Mr. Stokes, he left immediately?" "Yes," she said softly. "He was so quick, so dutiful. I thought it was just an animal, but—" Her voice trailed off, and she glanced, and I wanted a closer look. I was only gone a minute before the cry brought me back. "And you saw no one in the hall?" Poirot pressed. "No one," she replied, her tone firm. "It was empty." Major Ernest Blake, slouched in his chair, spoke before Poirot could question him. "I've nothing to hide," he growled. "I was on the terrace, smoking a cigar. Heard the cry, came back in. Didn't see Stokes or anyone else until we found him dead." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The terrace. It is close to the orchard, Major. Did you hear footsteps, perhaps, or see a shadow?" Blake's face reddened. "It was dark and I'd had a few drinks. I wasn't spying on anyone." Finally, Poirot turned to Mrs. Violette Dubois, whose dark eyes met his with an unsettling calm. "Madame, you stood by the window watching the orchard. A poetic choice. What did you see?" Mrs. Dubois' voice was low, deliberate. "The trees, the moonlight, the beauty of the night." The cry broke the silence, but I saw no movement, no figure, only shadows. Poirot leaned back, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk. "Merci. Your accounts, they are clear, yet they do not align perfectly. The cry at 9 o'clock, it marks the moment of death, or very near it. Yet each of you claims to have been elsewhere. Curious, no?" Inspector Grange, who had been listening with growing impatience, interjected. "Mr. Poirot, we've taken statements. The footprints in the orchard suggest 2 or 3 people were there. One set matches Stokes' shoes. The others, well, we're checking the guests' footwear now." Poirot nodded. "Excellent, Inspector. But the footprints, they tell only part of the story. The pruning knife, the apple, these are not random. They speak of intention, of motive." He rose, his movements precise. "I would see the orchard again, and then perhaps the rooms of Mr. Stokes." Grange led the way, with Hastings and Poirot following. "The desk. This," he said, "is most interesting. Inspector, may we open it?" Grange produced a key found among Stokes's possessions. Inside the box were letters, neatly tied with string, and a small ledger. Poirot scanned the letters, his expression unreadable. "Correspondence with a solicitor in London," he said. "And this ledger, it records payments, small but regular, to an unknown recipient. Stokes, it seems, had secrets." Hastings peered over Poirot's shoulder. "Blackmail?" he ventured. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps, mon ami. Or loyalty, or debt. We must learn more." As they returned to the library, Poirot's demeanor was one of quiet confidence. "The pieces, they begin to form a picture," he said to Hastings. "But the picture, it is not yet complete. We must watch, listen, and above all, think. The murderer believes they have outwitted us, but they have left a trail, one that Hercule Poirot will follow." The guests, dismissed for now, dispersed with uneasy glances. Hastings watched them go, his mind racing. Poirot's presence had stirred the pot, and already the cracks in their stories were beginning to show. The truth, he knew, was close, but still shrouded in the shadows of Hesperides Hall. Chapter 5. The Red Herrings. The midday sun filtered through the heavy drapes of Hesperides Hall, casting a muted glow over the library where Hercule Poirot sat, his notepad now filled with meticulous annotations. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the fireplace, his nerves frayed by the oppressive atmosphere of the estate. The murder of Reginald Stokes had tightened the noose of suspicion around the guests, and Inspector Grange's investigation, though thorough, seemed to lack the precision Poirot brought to the case. The Belgian detective's calm demeanor, however, was unshaken, his eyes gleaming with the quiet thrill of the chase. Inspector Grange entered the library, his face flushed with frustration. "We've checked the footwear," he announced, tossing a notebook onto the desk. "Major Blake's boots match the heavy prints in the orchard, size 2. We're comparing it to the guest's writing now. But Blake's the obvious suspect. He was outside, close to the orchard, and his boots match. I'm inclined to bring him in for questioning." Poirot raised a hand, his voice gentle but firm. "Patience, Inspector. The obvious. It is often the deceptive. Major Blake's boots place him at the scene, yes, but a killer does not so readily leave such clear traces. Let us consider all possibilities before we accuse Hastings." Listening intently, felt a flicker of doubt. Blake's bluster and proximity to the orchard made him a convenient suspect, but Poirot's words rang true, too convenient, perhaps. The detective's method relied on psychology, not just evidence, and Hastings knew better than to trust first impressions. Poirot requested the guests be summoned again, this time to the drawing room. As they gathered, their faces betrayed a mix of weariness and defiance. Sir Percival stood by the mantel, his posture rigid, while Lady Eleanor sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap. Dr. Reed polished his spectacles, Miss Winthrop clutched her notebook, and Mrs. Dubois maintained her enigmatic calm. Major Blake, however, was visibly agitated, his face redder than usual. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice smooth as silk. "A new piece of evidence has come to light. A note found on Mr. Stokes suggesting a meeting in the orchard at 8:45 p.m. I ask you now, who among you arranged to meet him?" The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Major Blake shifted uncomfortably. "I told you, I was on the terrace," he muttered. "Didn't see Stokes or anyone else." Poirot's gaze fixed on him. "And yet, Major, your boots tell a different story. They matched the heavy prints in the orchard. Perhaps you met Stokes, argued, and—" He let the question hang, his eyes never leaving Blake's. Blake's fists clenched. "That's preposterous. I'd no reason to kill the man. I barely knew him." Sir Percival interjected, his voice sharp. "This is nonsense, Poirot. Blake's a decorated officer, not a—" Mrs. Dubois, as always, seemed detached, her expression unreadable. The note, the footprints, Blake's boots, all pointed to a tangled web. But Poirot's questions were stirring something deeper. The detective turned to Lady Eleanor. "Madame, you were close to Mr. Stokes, no? A loyal servant, trusted by the family. Did he ever speak to you of his concerns, his secrets?" Lady Eleanor's face paled. "He was discreet," she said softly. "Always proper. If he had secrets, he kept them to himself." Poirot nodded, but his eyes lingered on her. "And yet, Madame, the ledger in his room suggests otherwise. Payments, regular and hidden. To whom, I wonder?" The room stirred, whispers rippling among the guests. Sir Percival's jaw tightened. "What are you implying, Poirot?" Stokes was a butler, not a conspirator. Poirot's voice remained calm. I imply nothing, Sir Percival. I observe, and I note that each of you has a reason to conceal the truth. The note in Stokes' pocket. It was written by someone in this house. The handwriting. It will tell us much. Grange, growing impatient, stepped forward. We're analyzing the note now. If it matches Blake's, he's got some explaining to do. Blake slammed his fist on the armrest. I didn't write any damn note. This is a frame-up. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the outburst. Enough, Major. The truth, it will emerge. For now, I ask you all to remain in the house. The orchard, the note, the apple. They speak to me, and soon they will reveal their secrets. As the guests dispersed, their alibis fraying under Poirot's scrutiny, Hastings followed him to the hall. You're stirring the pot, Poirot, he said. Blake's boots, the note. Do you think he's guilty? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The boots. They are too obvious, mon ami. The note, it is too convenient. The killer wishes us to look at Major Blake, to see only him, were a puzzle in themselves. Captain Arthur Hastings stood nearby, watching his friend's meticulous examination, while Inspector Grange lingered by the door, his skepticism evident in his furrowed brow. The murder of Reginald Stokes had deepened the unease in the house, and Poirot's relentless probing was beginning to unsettle the guests. Poirot's gloved finger traced a line in the ledger. Regardez, Hastings, he said softly. Payments, small but regular, every month for the past year. Always to CL, and always in cash, delivered to a postbox in Exeter. This is not the work of a simple butler, Hastings peered over his shoulder. Blackmail, you think? Stokes was extorting someone? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Perhaps, mon ami. Or perhaps he was a courier, a go-between. The initials CL. They are a clue, but to whom? We must consider the possibilities. He closed the ledger with a snap and turned to Grange. Inspector, have you the results of the handwriting analysis for the note found in Stokes' pocket? Grange nodded, producing a report. It's inconclusive. The note, 8:45 p.m., Orchard, doesn't match any of the guests' handwriting samples exactly. The script is careful, almost disguised. Could be anyone. Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. Disguised, you say? That is most interesting. The killer. They take pains to cover their tracks, yet they leave a note. Why? Grange shrugged. To lure Stokes to his death, obviously. Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone thoughtful. But the note, it is too precise, too deliberate. It is as if the killer wishes us to find it. He rose, adjusting his impeccable waistcoat. Come, Hastings. Let us return to the orchard. There is something I must verify. The orchard, bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon, seemed almost serene, its golden apples glinting like jewels among the leaves. The spot where Stokes had fallen was cold. Someone was here, someone who saw or participated in the act. We must find this object. He straightened, his mind clearly racing. The apple, too, it troubles me. Why place it so carefully beside the body? It is not merely decoration. It is a message. They returned to the house where Poirot requested a private audience with each guest. He began with Major Blake, whose bluster had given way to a sullen defensiveness. Major, Poirot said, seating himself opposite the retired officer. Your boots place you in the orchard, yet you claim you saw nothing. Tell me, what were you doing on the terrace at precisely 8:45 p.m.? Blake's face reddened. I told you, I was smoking a cigar. I didn't see Stokes or anyone else. I heard the cry at 9 and came inside. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. And your cigar, Major? Did you drop it, perhaps, or extinguish it? Blake frowned. I put it out on the terrace railing. Why does it matter? Poirot made a note. Everything matters, Major. The smallest detail. It reveals the truth. Next, he spoke with Miss Clara Winthrop, whose sharp eyes met his with defiance. Mademoiselle, Poirot said, your lipstick on the portrait frame confirms your story. But it is curious, no? To step away from dinner to admire a painting just as a cry is heard. Tell me, did you wear any jewelry last night? A brooch, perhaps, or a pendant? Miss Winthrop's hand instinctively touched her throat. A necklace, yes. A simple chain with a pearl pendant. Why? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. A precaution, mademoiselle. We are searching for a small object, crescent-shaped, lost in the orchard. You have not seen such a thing? No, she said quickly, though her fingers lingered on her necklace. I was in the hall, not the orchard. The interviews continued, each guest offering carefully measured responses. Lady Eleanor admitted to wearing a brooch shaped like a crescent moon, but insisted it was the ledger. CL is not a supplier, but a person. We must find them. Hastings frowned. Clara Winthrop's initials are CW, not CL. Could it be a coincidence? Poirot's smile was almost pitying. Coincidence, mon ami? No. The little gray cells, they reject such laziness. The mark, the apple, the payments, they are connected. We are close, but we must tread carefully. The killer, they watch us, and they are clever. As the afternoon waned, the guests retired to their rooms, their alibis strained under Poirot's relentless questioning. Hastings felt the weight of the mystery pressing harder. The crescent mark was a tangible clue, a crack in the killer's facade. But whose facade was it? And what secret was worth killing to protect? Chapter 7. More lies surface. The air in Hesperides Hall grew heavier as the day wore on, the weight of suspicion pressing against the elegant facade of the estate. By late afternoon, the library had become Hercule Poirot's command post, its shelves of leather-bound books bearing silent witness to his methodical unraveling of the mystery. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the window, watching the orchard where Stokes had met his end, while Poirot pored over the butler's ledger, his green eyes sharp with concentration. Inspector Grange, though diligent, seemed increasingly reliant on Poirot's insights, his earlier skepticism giving way to grudging respect. The ledger's cryptic entries, payments to CL, had sparked Poirot's interest, but it was the crescent-shaped mark in the orchard that consumed him now. This mark, Hastings, he said, tapping his pen against the desk. It is no accident. A button, a brooch, a pendant, something small. Yet it betrays the presence of another at the moment of death. We must find it, or its absence, among our suspects. Before Hastings could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. A constable entered, holding a small evidence bag. Sir, he said to Grange, we found this in the orchard, near where the body was. It was half buried in the soil. Poirot took the bag, his movements precise. Inside was a tiny crescent-shaped brooch, its silver edge tarnished but unmistakable. Claimed such a brooch was yours. Yet you insisted it remained with you. How do you explain its presence at the scene? Lady Eleanor's face paled, her cup clattering against the saucer. I don't know," she stammered. "I wore it last night, yes, but it was pinned to my dress. I didn't notice it missing until this morning. Someone must have taken it." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Taken it, madame? Or did you lose it in the orchard, perhaps during a moment of distress?" Her eyes widened, and she rose, her voice trembling. "Are you accusing me, Mr. Poirot? I was in the dining room when the cry was heard. Dr. Reed can confirm it." Poirot nodded, but his expression remained inscrutable. "We shall see, madame. The truth, it has a way of revealing itself." As Lady Eleanor retreated, visibly shaken, Hastings leaned close. "Do you think she's lying, Poirot?" "The brooch places her at the scene." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The brooch places something at the scene, mon ami. But whether it is Lady Eleanor's guilt or another's cunning, we shall discover." The investigation took a new turn when Grange's men completed their search of the guests' rooms. In Major Blake's quarters, they found a crumpled handkerchief stained with what appeared to be blood. Blake, summoned to the library, was apoplectic. "That's not mine," he roared. "I've never seen it before. Someone's trying to frame me, I tell you." Poirot examined the handkerchief, noting its monogram, E.B., matching Blake's initials. "Curious," he said softly. "The boots, the handkerchief, both point to you, Major. Yet you protest your innocence. Tell me, did you know Mr. Stokes well?" Blake's face reddened. "Barely spoke to the man. He poured my brandy, that's all. If someone's planting evidence, it's because they know I was on the terrace, an easy target." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And who, Major, would wish to cast suspicion upon you?" Blake hesitated, then Exeter. "I've heard rumors he handles discreet matters for wealthy families." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "Mademoiselle, you are most resourceful. How do you know of this Langley?" Miss Winthrop hesitated, her sharp features softening. "I investigated Sir Percival's finances last year for a story that never ran. Langley's name came up in connection with some unusual payments. I didn't pursue it, but now." Poirot nodded. "Merci. This is most helpful. But tell me, why did your story not run?" Her lips tightened. "Sir Percival has influence. My editor received a call and the story was killed." The revelation cast a new light on Sir Percival's imperious demeanor. Poirot sent a constable to contact Langley's office, requesting any records related to Stokes or the Grenville family. Meanwhile, he gathered the guests once more, this time in the dining room, where the memory of the fatal cry lingered. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot said, his voice commanding attention. "The web of deceit grows clearer. A brooch, a handkerchief, a ledger, they point to secrets within this house. I ask you now, who among you knew of Mr. Stokes' dealings with a solicitor named Charles Langley?" The room froze. Sir Percival's face darkened, and Lady Eleanor's hands trembled. Dr. Reed's spectacles slipped, and Major Blake's fists clenched. Only Mrs. Dubois remained impassive, her dark eyes unreadable. Miss Winthrop broke the silence. "I mentioned Langley to you, Mr. Poirot, but I've told no one else. If Stokes was involved with him, it's news to me." Sir Percival's voice was cold. "This is speculation, Poirot. Stokes handled household accounts. If he dealt with Langley, it was routine." Poirot's smile was sharp. "Routine, Sir Percival? Or a secret worth killing for? The ledger suggests otherwise."
As the guests dispersed, their nerves frayed, Hastings followed Poirot to the library. "You're rattling them, Poirot," he said. "The brooch, the handkerchief, Langley. Do you think Sir Percival's hiding something?" Poirot's eyes gleamed.
Telegram that had just arrived from Exeter. The telegram, from Charles Langley's office, confirmed that the solicitor had indeed dealt with Stokes, handling payments for an undisclosed client. The details were vague, citing confidentiality, but the message hinted at a matter of delicate family consequence. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he read it aloud to Hastings and Inspector Grange, who stood nearby, his frustration mounting. "Delicate family consequence," Poirot mused, his voice soft but deliberate. "This, mes amis, is no mere household account. Stokes was entangled in something deeper, a secret worth his life." Grange snorted. "You're reading too much into it, Poirot. We've got Blake's boots, the handkerchief with his initials, and now Lady Eleanor's brooch. The evidence points to them, not some shadowy conspiracy." Poirot's smile was patient. "The evidence, Inspector. It is like a mirror, reflecting what the killer wishes us to see. But the truth, it lies in the cracks. We must press further." The opportunity came unexpectedly. As the guests gathered for a tense dinner, the atmosphere brittle with unspoken accusations, Lady Eleanor's composure shattered. She sat at the far end of the table, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her hands trembling as she lifted her wineglass. Halfway through the meal, a clatter broke the silence. Her glass had slipped, spilling red wine across the pristine tablecloth. "I can't bear it," she cried, her voice raw with anguish. "All these questions, these suspicions, it's too much." She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The room froze. Sir Percival, seated at the head, rose sharply. "Eleanor, control yourself," he snapped, but his tone lacked its usual authority, betraying a flicker of unease. Poirot, seated opposite, leaned forward, his eyes gentle but probing. "Madame, your distress, it speaks of a burden. Share it with Hercule Poirot. What do you know? This is no trick. Madame has given us a piece of the puzzle, though it raises new questions. Who was this figure, and why did Stokes fear them?" Dr. Malcolm Reed, who had been silent, cleared his throat. "If I may, Mr. Poirot, I too noticed something odd that evening. Stokes seemed preoccupied during dinner service. He spilled a drop of wine on my sleeve, which was unlike him. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now—" Poirot nodded. "Merci, doctor. The smallest detail, it matters. Stokes was not himself, no? A man distracted. Perhaps by this meeting in the orchard, Miss Clara Winthrop, her journalist's instincts sharp, leaned forward. If Stokes was arguing with someone, it could be tied to those payments in his ledger. Perhaps C.L. was blackmailing him, not the other way around." Major Ernest Blake slammed his fist on the table. "Enough of this. You're all pointing fingers, but I'm the one with my boots in the mud and a handkerchief with my initials. Someone's setting me up, and I want to know who." Mrs. Violette Dubois, silent until now, spoke in her low, melodic voice. "The truth, Major. It will emerge, but accusations, they cloud the mind. We must trust Monsieur Poirot to see clearly." Poirot's gaze lingered on her, as if weighing her words. "Madame Dubois, you are wise. The emotions, they run high tonight,
and in such moments the heart betrays its secrets. He rose, addressing the group. This figure in the cloak, it is a vital clue. I ask you now to search your memories. Who among you left the dining room before 9 o'clock? Who wore a cloak or saw one? The guests exchanged uneasy glances, but no one spoke. Poirot's smile was faint. Very well. The silence, it too is a clue. Tomorrow we shall search the house for this cloak, and we shall examine the hall where Madame saw this figure. The truth, it draws near. As the dinner ended, the guests dispersed, their faces etched with fear and suspicion. Hastings followed Poirot to the library, his mind racing. Lady Eleanor's confession, opening new paths. But the killer he knew was still among them, watching, waiting, and perhaps preparing their next move. Chapter 9. The Trap. The morning light crept into Hesperides Hall, its pale rays doing little to dispel the chill that lingered in the air. The murder of Reginald Stokes had woven a web of suspicion around the estate, and the guests moved through the grand rooms with the wariness of prey sensing a predator. Hercule Poirot, however, remained the calm center of the storm, his impeccable suit and polished shoes a stark contrast to the disarray of emotions around him. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing in the library, watched his friend prepare for the next phase of the investigation, a glint of determination in Poirot's green eyes. The revelations of the previous evening, Lady Eleanor's tearful admission of seeing a cloaked figure arguing with Stokes, and Dr. Reed's observation of the butler's distraction, had shifted the case. The crescent brooch, the blood-stained handkerchief, and the ledger's payments to C.L. were pieces of a puzzle that Poirot was determined to assemble. Now he planned to tighten the net around the suspects. Mon ami, Poirot said to Hastings, his voice low but firm. The killer grows nervous. The brooch, the cloak, the ledger. They know we are close. Today we set a trap, using the psychology of the guilty mind. Hastings frowned, intrigued. A trap? How, Poirot? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. By gathering them all, Hastings, we shall confront them with the evidence, but not all at once. We drip the truth like water on a stone until the cracks appear. The guilty, they will betray themselves. Poirot requested that Inspector Grange assemble the guests in the drawing room at precisely 11 a.m. The room, with its ancestral portraits and heavy velvet curtains, felt oppressive as the suspects filed in. Sir Percival stood by the fireplace, his face a mask of irritation. Lady Eleanor sat rigidly, her hands clasped tightly. Dr. Malcolm Reed adjusted his spectacles, his nervousness palpable. Miss Clara Winthrop clutched her notebook, her sharp eyes that threatened someone in this room. He met this person in the orchard at 8:45 p.m., as the note in his pocket suggests. An argument ensued, and a pruning knife ended his life. The golden apple, placed beside him, was a message, or a taunt. But who was this cloaked figure, and what secret drove them to murder? Sir Percival's voice was sharp. This is speculation, Poirot. You've no proof, only trinkets and hearsay. Poirot's eyes gleamed. No, Sir Percival. The proof, it lies in the details. The crescent brooch, for instance. Lady Eleanor, you claim it was stolen from you, yet it was found where Stokes died. Tell me, have you found it missing before?
Lady Eleanor hesitated, her voice trembling. I told you I didn't notice until this morning. It was pinned to my dress during dinner. Poirot turned to the group. And the cloak. Who among you owns a cloak, or saw one that night? Speak, now, or the truth will find you. Silence fell, heavy and tense. Then, Miss Winthrop spoke, her voice steady. I have a cloak, Mr. Poirot. A dark green one kept in my room, but I didn't wear it last night. You're welcome to check. Poirot nodded. Merci, mademoiselle. We shall. And the rest of you? Dr. Reed cleared his throat. I've no cloak, only a coat. I was in the dining room, as I said. Major Blake snorted. No cloak here, just my uniform jacket, and it was on the terrace with me. Mrs. Dubois' voice was soft. I own a black cloak, Monsieur Poirot, but it has not left my wardrobe since I arrived. Sir Percival's jaw tightened. This is absurd. I've no cloak and neither does my wife. You're chasing phantoms. Poirot's smile was faint. Phantoms, Sir Percival? No. The cloak is real, and it was seen. Inspector Grange, I suggest a search of the house, wardrobes, trunks, every corner. The cloak, it will tell us much. Grange, though someone's playing a game, planting evidence to throw you off. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. Enough. The cloak, the brooch, the handkerchief, they are threads in a web of deception. But there is one thread we have not yet pulled, the payments to C.L. I have learned that Charles Langley handles matters for this family. Sir Percival, what dealings did Stokes have with him? Sir Percival's face reddened. I've told you Stokes managed household accounts. If he dealt with Langley, it was routine. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Routine, Sir Percival, or a secret you wished to keep buried? The ledger suggests otherwise. The room grew still, the tension palpable. Lady Eleanor's hands trembled and Dr. Reed's spectacles slipped down his nose. Mrs. Dubois watched silently, her expression unreadable. Poirot's trap had worked. The guilty party was rattled, their composure fraying. But who? As the guests were dismissed, Poirot turned to Hastings. The net tightens, mon ami. The cloak, it is no accident. The killer, they grow careless. Tomorrow we shall pull the final thread. Outside, the orchard's golden apples gleamed in the fading light, silent witnesses to the drama unfolding within Hesperides Hall. Chapter 10. The Reveal. The grand drawing room of Hesperides Hall was suffused with a tense stillness, the late morning light filtering through the heavy curtains and casting long shadows across the polished floor. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small, immaculate figure commanding the attention of the gathered suspects. Captain Arthur Hastings, seated near the fireplace, felt his pulse quicken. He knew this was the moment Poirot had been building toward, the unraveling of the mystery that had gripped the estate since Reginald Stokes' murder. Inspector Grange stood by the door, his arms crossed, his expression a mix of skepticism and anticipation. The guests, Sir Percival Grenville, Lady Eleanor, Dr. Malcolm Reed, Miss Clara Winthrop, Major Ernest Blake, and Mrs. Violette Dubois, sat in a semicircle, their faces taut. Lighter, and a partial set, suggested a meeting gone wrong. The note in his pocket, 8:45 p.m., Orchard, confirmed a rendezvous. But with whom? He paused, his gaze settling on Major Blake. The heavy prints matched your boots, Major. The handkerchief stained with blood and bearing your initials was found in your room. You were on the terrace close to the orchard. An obvious suspect, no? Blake's face reddened. I told you, I'm being framed. I didn't touch Stokes. Poirot raised a hand. Oui, Major. The evidence against you, it is too perfect, too convenient. The killer wished us to look at you and away from themselves. He turned to Lady Eleanor, whose hands trembled in her lap. Madame, your crescent brooch was found in the orchard. You claimed it was stolen, yet you saw a cloaked figure arguing with Stokes before the cry. A damning coincidence, no? Lady Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't kill him. I swear it. Poirot nodded. I believe you, Madame. The brooch, like the handkerchief, was placed to mislead. But your sighting of the cloaked figure, it was true, and it was vital. He shifted his attention to Miss Winthrop. Mademoiselle, your cloak, stained with mud and a golden apple leaf, was found hidden in your room. You too are a convenient suspect, yet your journalist's instinct led you to Charles Langley, the solicitor tied to Stokes's ledger. You knew more than you admitted, no? Miss Winthrop's eyes narrowed. I told you what I knew. If my cloak was used, someone took it to frame me. Poirot's gaze moved to Dr. Reed, then Mrs. Dubois, before settling on Sir Percival. The ledger, it is the key. Payments to C.L. Charles Langley, handling a matter of delicate family consequence. Stokes was no mere butler. He was a keeper of secrets, a courier for someone in this house. But whose secret? Poirot's voice was relentless. Non, Sir Percival. Stokes was your intermediary, paying Charles Langley to suppress a claim to the orchard, a claim tied to your late brother's estate. Stokes, loyal but curious, began to ask questions. He grew greedy, or perhaps fearful. He demanded more, and you could not risk his betrayal. Lady Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Percival, is this true? Poirot continued undeterred. You wrote the note, Sir Percival, in a disguised hand. You wore Miss Winthrop's cloak taken from her room to conceal your identity. You met Stokes in the orchard, argued, and struck him with the pruning knife. You placed the golden apple, a symbol of your obsession, to taunt or to mislead. The brooch you took from your wife's dress. The handkerchief from Blake's room. You framed them both, knowing their alibis were weak. Sir Percival rose, his voice shaking with rage. You have no proof, Poirot. This is slander. Poirot's smile was cold. The proof, it is in the details. The partial prints in the orchard. They match your evening shoes, Sir Percival, not Major Blake's boots. The mud on Miss Winthrop's cloak matches the soil where Stokes fell. And Langley's records, which arrived this morning, confirm payments from you to suppress a claim by your brother's heir. A claim that would have cost you the orchard. The room erupted in murmurs. Inspector Grange stepped forward, his face grim. Sir Percival Grenville, you're under arrest for the murder of Reginald Stokes. Sir Percival's shoulders slumped, his defiance crumbling. I had to protect the orchard, he muttered. It's all I have left of the Grenville legacy. Stokes was going to expose me. He wanted more money, more power. Lady Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, and Dr. Reed reached for her hand. Miss Winthrop scribbled furiously, her journalist's instincts triumphant. Major Blake exhaled, relief washing over him. Mrs. Dubois' expression remained unreadable. The unraveling of the mystery had left him both satisfied and pensive. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, his mind still reeling from Poirot's dramatic reveal. "You did it, Poirot," he said, his voice tinged with admiration. "You saw through the lies, the planted evidence, all of it. But how did you know it was Sir Percival?" Poirot turned, his green eyes thoughtful. "Mon ami, the truth, it is like a mosaic. Each piece, the brooch, the handkerchief, the cloak, the ledger, seems separate, but together they form a picture. Sir Percival's motive was the orchard, his pride, his legacy. The golden apples, they were not just fruit, but a fortune he could not lose. Stokes, with his ledger and his questions, threatened that fortune. The rest, the footprints, the note, the apple placed beside the body, was a performance, designed to mislead." Hastings nodded, though a question lingered. "But the cloaked figure Lady Eleanor saw, how did you know it was Sir Percival and not someone else?" Poirot's smile was faint. "The cloak, Hastings, it was Miss Winthrop's, but its size was wrong for her. It hung too long, too loose, as if worn by a taller man. Sir Percival, he is tall, no? And the partial prints in the orchard, his evening shoes, not Blake's heavy boots. The little gray cells, they noticed such things. The guests, released from the drawing room, had dispersed to process the revelation. Lady Eleanor sat alone in the library, her face pale but composed, as if a burden had been lifted. Dr. Malcolm Reed hovered nearby, offering quiet words of comfort. Miss Clara Winthrop, her notebook filled with the case's details, was already drafting a story, her journalist's instincts undeterred by her brief status as a suspect. Major Ernest Blake, exonerated, had retreated to the terrace with a brandy, his relief palpable. Mrs. Violet Dubois, ever enigmatic, stood by a window, her dark eyes fixed on the orchard. Inspector Grange stepped into the crisp September evening, the orchard's trees heavy with golden apples. The spot where Stokes had fallen was now just a patch of earth. But the memory of the pruning knife and the solitary apple lingered. Poirot paused, his cane resting lightly in the grass. "Hastings," he said, his voice low. "The world, it is full of such tragedies. The desire for wealth, for status, it drives men to destroy what they claim to cherish. Sir Percival loved his orchard, but it was a love that consumed him." Hastings nodded, his thoughts turning to the guests. "What will happen to Lady Eleanor? She seemed so broken." Poirot's eyes were distant. "She will endure, mon ami. Her husband's crime, it wounds her, but she is stronger than she appears. And Dr. Reed, I think, will be her ally. As for Miss Winthrop, her story will bring her fame, though it may cost her Sir Percival's goodwill. Major Blake, he will drink and forget. And Madame Dubois." He paused, a faint smile playing on his lips. "She sees more than she says. A woman of secrets, but not, I think, of malice."
They walked in silence, the orchard's beauty a poignant contrast to its dark history. Poirot stopped beneath a tree, its branches laden with golden apples. "These apples," he said, "they are beautiful, no? But beauty, it can hide a poison. So it is with the human soul." Hastings, ever the practical man, felt a pang of frustration. "You always see so much, Poirot. I look at the same clues, but I miss the pattern." Poirot chuckled softly. "You see, Hastings, but you do not observe. The little gray cells, they must be trained to seek the why, not just the what. In time, perhaps, you will learn." As they returned to the house, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the orchard in twilight. Poirot's work was done, the killer unmasked, but Hastings sensed his friend's quiet restlessness. Events of the past days. The case was solved, the murderer unmasked. Yet a quiet unease lingered, as if the estate held secrets still unspoken. Poirot, ever meticulous, was adjusting his hat in the hall mirror, his movements precise despite the early hour. "Mon ami," he called to Hastings, "you are pensive. The case, it is closed, no? Yet you linger, like a man who hears a sound he cannot place." Hastings joined him, his expression troubled. "It's just, it feels too neat, Poirot. Sir Percival's motive, the planted evidence, the cloaked figure, it all fits, but something nags at me. What if we've missed something?" Poirot's green eyes twinkled with amusement. "Ah, Hastings, your instincts, they grow sharper. But fear not, the little gray cells they do not miss. Sir Percival's guilt is certain. The ledger, the partial prints, the cloak's mud, all point to him. Yet, I confess there is a shadow, a small question that remains. Let us take one final turn through the house before we depart." They began in the library, where Poirot's investigation had taken root. The ledger, now in Inspector Grange's possession, was no longer on the desk. But Poirot's eyes swept the room as if seeking a final clue. The payments to C.L., he mused. They were the heart of the matter. Charles Langley, the solicitor, confirmed Sir Percival's desperation to protect the orchard from a legal claim. But why, Hastings, did Stokes agree to be his intermediary? Loyalty, fear, or greed? Hastings frowned. Greed, I'd wager. The ledger showed larger payments just before his death. He must have demanded more. Poirot nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. Perhaps, but Stokes, he was a man of order, like myself. His room, his accounts, everything precise. A man of greed is less careful, no? They moved to the hall, where Lady Eleanor had seen the cloaked figure arguing with Stokes. The dim light, even now, cast shadows that seemed to Dubois, her dark eyes calm but piercing. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, "you are leaving, yet the house feels no lighter. The truth, it has not healed all wounds." Poirot bowed slightly. "Madame, you are perceptive. The truth, it exposes, but it does not always mend. Tell me, what do you know of Stokes's secrets?" Mrs. Dubois hesitated, then spoke softly. "He was a man of discretion, but he watched. I saw him once, in the village, speaking to a young woman, nervous, furtive. I thought little of it then, but now. Perhaps she was tied to this CL? Poirot's eyes narrowed. A young woman, you say? Describe her. Tall, fair-haired, dressed simply. I saw her only from a distance, near the post box where Stokes sent his payments. Poirot nodded, his mind clearly racing. Merci, madame. You have given me a thread to pull. As they prepared to depart, Hastings pressed him. Poirot, what does it mean? Is there another layer to this? Poirot adjusted his gloves, his expression serene. The case, it is solved, mon ami. Sir Percival killed Stokes to protect his orchard. But the young woman, the payments, they suggest a deeper story, one we may never fully know. Stokes perhaps was not just a courier but a protector of someone else's secret. The orchard, it was the motive, but the heart of this tragedy, it lies in human frailty. They stepped outside, the gravel crunching underfoot as a motor car waited to take them to the station. The orchard stretched before them, its golden apples gleaming in the morning mist. Hastings felt a pang of melancholy. It's a beautiful place, Poirot, but it's tainted now. Poirot's voice was soft. Beauty, Hastings, it is often a mask. The little gray cells, they see beyond it. Come, the train awaits, and London calls. As the car pulled away, Hesperides Hall receded into the distance, its secrets exposed. Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. Mon ami, you grow restless, like a hound who scents a fox. The case of Mr. Stokes's murder, it is solved. Sir Percival killed to protect his orchard, his legacy. The evidence, the partial prints, the cloak, the ledger, all confirm it. But you are right to sense an unseen thread. The young woman, she is a shadow on the edge of our picture. Hastings leaned forward. Then why not stay? We could investigate, find her, confirm her connection to Langley. Poirot shook his head, his expression serene. No, Hastings. The murder is solved, and Sir Percival is in the hands of Inspector Grange. The young woman, she is not the killer, but perhaps a reason for Stokes's actions. His ledger, his secrecy, it suggests he protected someone, not just himself. To pursue her now would be to chase a ghost, and Hercule Poirot does not chase ghosts. The train's whistle sounded, and Poirot's gaze drifted to the window. Let us consider, mon ami. Stokes was a man of order, yet he risked his position for these payments to C.L. Charles Langley, the solicitor, yes, but perhaps for another. Mrs. Dubois saw a young woman, fair-haired, near the post box where Stokes sent his payments. This woman, she may be the heir Sir Percival feared, the one whose claim threatened the orchard. Hastings's eyes widened. You think Stokes was helping her? That he was paying Langley to keep her claim alive, not suppress it? Poirot nodded slowly. It is possible. Stokes. He was loyal to the Grenville family, but loyalty, it can shift. Perhaps he knew of this heir, a niece, a cousin, and sought to aid her, against Sir Percival's wishes. His demands for more money, they were not greed, but necessity. Sir Percival discovered this betrayal and acted to silence him. Hastings frowned. But why the golden apple? Why place it beside the body? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The apple, it was Sir Percival's flourish, a symbol of his triumph over the threat giving way to the outskirts of London. Hastings thought of Hesperides Hall, Lady Eleanor's quiet grief, Dr. Reed's protective concern, Miss Winthrop's relentless ambition.
Major Blake's blustering relief, and Mrs. Dubois' enigmatic calm. Each had played a role in the drama, yet the young woman remained a phantom, a piece of the puzzle just out of reach. "Poirot," Hastings said at last, "do you ever wonder about the ones who get away? The secrets we don't uncover?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Always, Hastings. But the little gray cells, they are content to solve what is before them. The rest, it is for fate to decide." As the train pulled into Paddington Station, Poirot rose, his posture as impeccable as ever. "Come, mon ami. London awaits, and with it new mysteries. The orchard of Hesperides, it has yielded its truth. Let us move on," Hastings followed, his heart still heavy with the shadow of the unknown. The golden apples of Hesperides Hall would fade into memory, but the echo of that unseen thread, the young woman, the secret Stokes died for, would linger. A quiet reminder that even Poirot's brilliance could not illuminate every corner of the human heart. Chapter 14. The Final Glimmer. The London air was crisp as Hercule Poirot and Captain Arthur Hastings stepped off the train at Paddington Station, the bustle of the city a jarring contrast to the somber quiet of Hesperides Hall. Poirot's impeccable figure with his polished shoes and neatly waxed mustache moved through the crowd with purpose, while Hastings trailed behind, his thoughts still tethered to the orchard and the unresolved shadow of the mysterious young woman. The case of Reginald Stokes' murder was closed, Sir Percival Grenville's guilt established. Yet the echo of Mrs. Violette Dubois' revelation about a fair-haired woman lingered like a faint mist. As they settled into a taxi bound for Poirot's flat, Hastings broke the silence. "Poirot, I can't stop surfaced through Charles Langley's records. But consider this. Stokes, he was a man of loyalty, yet he kept secrets from Sir Percival. His payments to CL were not blackmail, I think, but protection. For someone he cared for, perhaps a daughter, a niece, or a ward." The taxi wound through London's busy streets and Poirot continued, his voice soft but deliberate. The young woman, seen by Madame Dubois, was furtive, nervous. She met Stokes at the post box, where he sent his payments. This suggests a bond, a trust. Stokes died to protect her secret, and Sir Percival killed to protect his own. The tragedy, it is complete. Hastings leaned back, his mind racing. "So you think Stokes was helping her claim the orchard, against Sir Percival's wishes?" Poirot nodded. "It is likely. The golden apples, they were Sir Percival's obsession. But for Stokes, they were a means to an end. A way to secure a future for this CL. The apple placed beside his body was Sir Percival's mockery of that purpose, a final assertion of his control. The taxi pulled up to Poirot's flat, a neat Georgian building that reflected his love of order. As they stepped out, a young boy approached holding a telegram. "Mr. Poirot?" he asked, tipping his cap. Poirot took the telegram, his eyes narrowing as he read it. "From Inspector Grange," he said, passing it to Hastings. The message was brief. Langley confirms payments to CL were for a Miss Charlotte Langley, niece of Sir Percival's late brother. Claim to orchard valid but suppressed. She has vanished. Case closed. Hastings's heart sank. Charlotte Langley, C.L. She was the heir then. But vanished? Poirot, we have to find her. Poirot's expression was unreadable. Non, Hastings. She has chosen to disappear, and we must respect that choice. Her claim, it may resurface in time, through legal channels, cells. They have served us well. But they remind us, too, that not every mystery is ours to solve. The golden apples of Hesperides, they will grow again, and perhaps Charlotte Langley will claim her due. But for now, we rest. Hastings nodded, though the glimmer of the unseen thread, Charlotte Langley's fate, lingered in his mind. The case was closed, but the echoes of Hesperides Hall would follow them, a quiet reminder of the secrets that even Poirot's brilliance could not fully illuminate. Chapter 15. The Last Apple. The soft glow of evening settled over Hercule Poirot's London flat, casting long shadows across the polished furniture and the neatly arranged bookshelves. The air was warm with the scent of tea and the faint crackle of the fire, a stark contrast to the chill of Hesperides Hall. Captain Arthur Hastings sat in an armchair, his thoughts still tethered to the orchard, the golden apples, and the elusive Charlotte Langley. Poirot, seated opposite, sipped his tisane, his green eyes distant yet alert, as if the case of Reginald Stokes' murder lingered in his mind like an unresolved chord. The telegram from Inspector Grange, confirming Charlotte Langley as the CL of Stokes' ledger, had closed the investigation but left a lingering question. Hastings, ever the sentimentalist, could not shake his concern for the young woman who had vanished into the shadows. "Poirot," he said, breaking the quiet, "do you think Charlotte Langley will ever come forward? She's the rightful heir to the orchard, isn't she? It seems unjust that she's out there, alone, after all Stokes did for her." Poirot set down his cup, his fingers steepled in thought. "Mon ami, you are troubled by the fate of Mademoiselle Langley. It is a noble instinct. But the world, it does not always reward nobility. The orchard, it was her birthright, yes, but Sir Percival's crime has ensured she remains hidden. For now. Stokes, he protected her, and in his death he secured her safety. To come forward she risks exposure, perhaps danger. But the little gray cell, the London papers, would bring her fame, but also enemies. Major Ernest Blake, cleared of suspicion, would drown his relief in brandy. And Mrs. Violet Dubois, with her enigmatic wisdom, had seen more than she revealed, her final clue about the young woman proving pivotal. Poirot rose, his movements precise, and crossed to the window, gazing out at the London skyline. The case of Hesperides Hall. It is a reminder, Hastings, that truth is a double-edged sword. We have unmasked Sir Percival, saved the innocent from suspicion, but the orchard's legacy, it remains tainted. The golden apples, they are beautiful, no? But their beauty hides a poison. Greed, betrayal, death. Hastings nodded, his voice soft. It's strange, Poirot. The orchard was so idyllic, yet it hid such darkness. Do you think it will ever recover? Poirot turned, his eyes gleaming with a quiet resolve. The orchard, it will bloom again as nature does. Lady Eleanor, she may sell it, or perhaps Charlotte Langley will claim it one day. But for now, It is a place of ghosts, Stokes, Sir Percival, the secrets they carried. Our task, it is done. The rest, it belongs to time. A knock at the door interrupted them. Poirot's housekeeper entered, holding a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. "This came for you, sir," she said, handing it to Poirot. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a single golden apple, its skin flawless and shimmering in the firelight. A note was tucked beneath it, written in a neat, unfamiliar hand. "For Monsieur Poirot, in gratitude. The orchard keeps its secrets, but you have brought light." C.L. Hastings' eyes widened. "Charlotte Langley! She's alive, Poirot, and she knows you solved the case." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Oui, mon ami. She is alive, and she is grateful. This apple, it is her farewell. A final glimmer of the truth we sought. She will not come